feedback focused. And so that's a little bit our role here and why we're also bringing together this group here. And one note for the people online is if you don't want to be in any possible videos that we might publish, like parts of this later on the internet, then feel free to turn off your camera again. I know you just got the other instructions, but yeah, we won't post this. And then in this session today, we'll start off with some curated questions that were already submitted before. And then later on in the session, we will go for the live Q&A. So people in the audience here can ask questions, and people online, you can also ask questions. You can submit them in the Q&A tab in Zoom. So there's a button which says Q&A, and you can sometimes find it under More instead of as a separate button. And then you can submit questions there and also vote on each other's questions. All right, so to start off a bit broadly, can you tell us more about yourself and how you came to found BlueDot?
Yeah, so I am Dewi, originally from North Wales in the UK, from a small little village in North Wales. And growing up, was very, very passionate about trying to save the Welsh language. This was my earliest mission in life. So from age 9 to 13 was just on this mission. A fun little anecdote that I sometimes share on this was when I was about 10, I went around all of the computers in my primary school and changed the default search browser to the Welsh language Google. And I was just trying to get everyone in Wales to speak Welsh. This was my goal. I was like, we need to save the Welsh language. This is what we must do. And then around age 15, 16, I started learning more about other global problems. So I learned about climate change, about various global conflicts, realized the world is bigger than just Wales. And that kind of was a bit of a shock to me at the time. And that then inspired me to start learning more about politics, and also inspired me to go down to study engineering, focusing on renewable energy. So initially I was thinking of working directly on trying to mitigate climate change. And then once I got to university, I started interrogating a bunch of vegans. It's like, why the hell are you not eating chickens? After many months, was very compelled by their arguments and realized, oh man, maybe I should stop eating chickens. And so went vegetarian, soon went vegan, and then started doing a lot of vegan advocacy, where I realized probably factory farming is actually worse for the world than climate change, or is a bigger concern, bigger source of suffering. So I pivoted a lot of my attention away from climate change towards trying to end factory farming. And then about a year and a half, 2 years into trying to do vegan advocacy, I realized even if I was convincing one person to go vegan every week, this is not going to cut it. There's too many humans that eat animals. And so I was thinking about what are better ways to solve this problem, because I didn't want to get too attached to this initial idea I had that was, convince people to go vegan. And then I learned about alternative proteins. Got very excited about that. Can we just change the products that people consume without them having to make any difficult decisions? Because people usually just want convenience, and trying to change people's behavior is very, very hard. And so around 2018, I was thinking about pivoting from renewable energy engineering into tissue engineering, and maybe starting an alternative proteins or cultivated meat company. And I was very, very surprised by how difficult it was to figure out how to start working in alternative proteins. There was no infrastructure in place for accelerating new people who are motivated to do good into the field. And this was quite mind-boggling to me. It's clearly this should be solved. It should be easier for people to join this community. And then around 2019, I kind of got introduced to the EA world, and also started reading a bunch of stuff on biosecurity and engineered pandemics. and got very, very concerned about that and how AI could also accelerate that type of technology. And then COVID did not reassure me that governments had their shit together. It was a bit of a wake-up call of realizing, wow, yeah, we really are not very good at this as a civilization, dealing with these kind of threats. And so I did a postgrad in international relations, where I was thinking about, or maybe I should go into diplomacy, and I should try and get the East and the West to cooperate. And that was in 2020. And then after graduating, I was just extremely confused about what to do. I had really no idea how to contribute. I was thinking about moving to China, but to learn Mandarin, to start working on diplomacy stuff. But as a result of COVID, I was not able to do that. And so I was like, well, I have no idea what to do. So I just saw this random community building grant / job in Cambridge. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll apply to that. And I saw that as just a nice opportunity to just spend more time learning about the problems and meeting awesome people, and like increasing my surface area for luck. And ended up moving to Cambridge towards the end of 2020, and started doing a bunch of community building. And the real beginning of BlueDot came when I observed the AI safety discussion groups in Cambridge, just mostly being very confused, mostly being confused people coming together and being more confused. And for the people who are already there, the discussion quality was not very high, as reported to me by a bunch of experts who attended. And also for new people joining, they found it very difficult to join the conversation because of how much jargon was being used. And I happened to meet Richard Ngor, who was doing a PhD in Cambridge at the time. And we were like, okay, how do we solve this problem? And I'd already seen how successful the EA fellowships had been accelerating people into the EA community. I was like, cool, how about we apply that model to solve this problem? And that's how the AGI Safety Fundamentals courses were born. And then for about a year and a half after that, was just doing loads of random projects, including the courses on alternative proteins, courses on biosecurity, summer research fellowships. We built an office in Cambridge. We were just doing lots of random stuff. And then 3 years ago, we were like, okay, we really need to focus now. We're very spread thin. And so that's when we zoomed in and decided to co-found BlueDot. And then we've been trying to scale the courses ever since. I will stop there. That was longer than my allotted 3 minutes, so I apologize, but yes.
It's all right, thanks. And then as context for some people who either here or online who might not know about EA, so it's like the effective altruism community.
Yeah.
Bunch of people trying to do a lot of good in the world. So it sounds like that also played a role.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, interesting. And so could you tell us more about the moment that you decided you need to focus down and you need to, you want to found a separate organization? How did that decision process look like?
Yeah. So I read a book by Jim Collins called Good to Great. Is anyone familiar with Good to Great? Hands up if you've read Good to Great. Oh, 2, yes. Okay, very good book, strong recommend. And the premise of the book is Jim Collins analyzed hundreds of different companies from the past 6 decades or something, and tried to find companies that were ticking along at fairly standard rates, and at some point had some intervention that led them to rapidly grow compared to the rest of the stock market. And then him and his research team really zoomed in on this specific moment where they did something to increase the rate of growth and success of the company, and try to understand what is it that those companies did that other companies were not doing, that enabled them to be really, really strong. And there were many findings from that. But one of them was the importance of focus and having a not to-do list, and being like, what is the one thing we are going to become world-class at, that we feel that we can be really energized to do, and that we can also do better than anyone else. And that can be really, really specific. It doesn't need to be we are better than everyone else at football or something really broad like this. You can really, really zoom in on a specific thing. And I realized, we were trying to run multiple student groups at the University of Cambridge. we were running a co-working space. We were running in-depth summer research programs, full-time, 10 weeks in Cambridge. We were also running these online courses for people all over the world. I was like, oh man, I'm not focused. I'm really unfocused. And I was realizing in myself, my time was split all the time. My calendar was terrible. And it was not on track to building a world-class organization. So yeah, that was the moment.
Great, very interesting. Are there any other books or kind of resources that you came across that like had a big impact on how BlueDot went or the founding journey?
I'm tempted to throw back to Rudolph and ask Rudolph to talk about good strategy, bad strategy. What did you learn from that? Because I think that is a. Can I throw it back? All right. So this is a book that had a big influence on me, and I also. Good strategy, bad strategy.
But so, did you already discuss which is great? Okay, great. Well, I came here to listen, but I guess I have been cynically put on the spot here. So I used to think that all strategy books were bullshit, basically, because the point of strategy is you have a thing you want to do, and then how do you do this? And like, surely you just like think about the domain in question or something. But then Dewi was like, no, you're wrong. Read this book, and I read this book, and turns out that Dewi was right. But basically, I think like the core insight of good strategy, bad strategy, which you can find a review of on my blog on a no-set gauge, is like, like a strategy. I think it has this like three-part idea of like a strategy having like a you have to have some like overall guiding policy for how you achieve the thing you want to do. You have to have some some like key insight. I think I was slightly messing this up, but like some key insight into like what's the like main leverage point you have is, and there's some like concrete like plan of action. I think in particular it really emphasizes the thing of like a lot of the like work of strategy is like not sort of like having like a really sort of like long like laundry list of like all these things you have to do. There's like finding the like really simple like fulcrum point where you can like reframe the situation, be like, oh yes, here's my main sort of advantage, and just being able to communicate like the sort of like, you know, usually if you have a good strategy, something very simple. I think the book uses the example of like when Nelson beats the French fleet at Trafalgar. The strategy was just like, okay, like we will drive the British fleet directly at the French fleet, and then not fight in a line. And if we're not fighting in a line, the British are better at fighting. So like, you know, not being in a line formation will give the Brits a comparative advantage. Will make up for the difference in numbers. And like it's very simple insight, but you know, you just have to like reframe the situation and then find that core thing, and then have like a very simple policy. Yeah.
Nice.
But it is a very good book.
Yeah.
Also, good to great is a very good book.
Nice. Awesome. And maybe very briefly to build on that as well, and I'll use your example with workshop labs. So the like three kind of steps in this book that it emphasizes is to first diagnose the critical challenge, and then develop like the guiding policy, which is what Rudolph was saying, of like your how you're applying leverage on the problem. And how are you thinking about the problem in a way that allows you to apply your strengths against your enemy's weakness? And then the final step is like, what is the coherent actions you're going to take to actually execute on your overall plan? And the thing that almost everyone messes up on is having an idea and then just doing the idea without first understanding what is the problem you're trying to solve, and what is the like critical part of that problem which you really need to figure out how to overcome. And I'll use your example with workshop labs, where many programs that are trying to get entrepreneurs to do things incentivize them to pump out ideas all the time of what company could you be founding, and what is your idea for a company, and you're just pushing them to generate loads and loads of ideas. However, if you're doing this, you're skipping the first step in this good strategy, bad strategy process. You're skipping the diagnose the critical challenge, really deeply understand the challenge that you're trying to overcome. You know, what is the problem you're solving? And so if you're constantly pumping out ideas, you're going to be pumping out really shallow, generic ideas that are not helpful. And it's very easy to become obsessed and fall in love with your idea instead of the problem. It's just like classic startup advice: fall in love with the problem. And so for workshop labs, Rudolph and Luke spent many months thinking about what happens in the world when the value of human labor starts, you know, declining, and the incentives for democracies to care for their population decreases. And they, you know, wrote The Intelligence Curse, wrote A History of the Future, became experts in this problem, before then thinking about how do we address this problem with now workshop labs. And so that is one tip I would have for you guys, is spend a lot of time really trying to understand the problem, like months just trying to understand the problem. Become the world, the top expert in the world at that, at like a very thin slice of a really important problem, and make it a thin slice. Don't try and become a world expert at like pandemics. You're going to fail if you're trying to become the world expert at pandemics. But become a world expert in a specific slice of the problem, and then from that position of expertise and credibility, you can then think through, okay, how do I address this problem really effectively? What is the weak link in this problem that I can kind of pierce, and then everything will fall apart, and we will achieve success. Obviously, this is a bit vague in this way, but that's kind of the mentality that you want to have. Also, I should probably just wear this instead of having it in my hand. Well, I guess I'm probably going to throw it back at you guys, so maybe I should just hold it. Yeah. But anyway, I'll stop there.
As long as it's a bit close to your mouth, it
Yeah.
should be fine. Great. Okay. Well, already a bunch of interesting insights, and thanks for the surprise visit from Rudolf. So another question that I'm curious to ask you is, how did you find your co-founders or co-founder for BlueDot, and
Yep.
what do you think is important to get a good co-founder?
Yeah, awesome. So the way that I found my co-founders was by just collaborating with lots of people. So when I was in Cambridge initially, I received this small grant, and I had no money to pay anyone, and I just started roping in tens, probably over 50 different people as volunteers to just do stuff. So we had like multiple different student groups that we were kind of coordinating. We had something like 30 or 40 facilitators all working for free on the post AGI safety fundamentals. I was like pulled in loads of different people. And this gave me a huge amount of surface area to see who is good at things and who I want to work with. And like who is actually the top performers in this among all of these people. Because if you're just trying to determine who is really good and who you enjoy working with, who you want to like jump into the trenches with, just from like an hour conversation, you're going to fail unless you have some insane intuition for people, which I certainly cannot determine this in an hour. Then it's going to be really hard. So like actually just working with lots of different people on lots of hackathons or something gives you a lot of information about who is good and who do you want to work with. And so yeah, I was very fortunate to be in a situation to do that when I was in Cambridge. And then I was like, well, I want to do more things. I need to start hiring people. I need to be building the team. And that was the process. It was not the most intentional process. I'm saying this as if I tried to do this. I didn't try to do any of this. And almost at no point did I decide to start a company. It was more just like, I'm trying to solve the problem. And other people were like throwing ideas at me like, oh, maybe you should have a company. Because you're self-employed. That's kind of weird. Maybe we can build a company, and then if you've got a company, you can pay other people. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then like needing a grant to pay all these people, and there's like, oh, you need to do some fundraising. Oh, okay. So a lot of it was just like I was obsessed with solving the problem, and then the idea of the company and co-founders and all this stuff was downstream of being obsessed with solving the problem. Yeah.
Right. Very interesting. And could you tell us a little bit about how you got your initial funding for BlueDot? It sounded like you already had some student grants going. How did that fundraising for BlueDot itself go?
So the first grant I received was for a year's salary to initially it was just like run a student group in Cambridge. But that was super big. I could just do whatever I wanted. So I did not really run the student group. I did all the other stuff. And so that was end of 2020 until end of 2021. And then the summer of 2021, I was still not sure what I wanted to do. The AGI safety fundamentals was running, and lots of people were like doing the thing and being very excited about it, but I was still not sure if that was the thing I wanted to do. And I was still working by myself at that point, with lots of volunteers, but I hadn't paid anyone. And then EA Oxford received a £20,000 grant to run these weekly events in Oxford. And I was like, holy shit, they got money. They were able to like get money from people to do things. I just like, it had never occurred to me that you could apply for money and get money for things. again, I'm not from an entrepreneurial background. I'm from a village in Wales. I don't know entrepreneurs. And so that was very interesting. I was like, oh shit, maybe I could, and they basically got an office, and I was like, oh, maybe I could have an office, because I was living in my camper van at the time. I built a camper van because I didn't want to pay rent. So I was living in a camper van. I was like, oh, maybe I should ask people for money so I can have an office, and then all the volunteers who I'm working with can kind of be in an office with me, and maybe I can pay some of them some amount of money. And so then I applied to the EA Infrastructure Fund and got £200,000 initially. So that was to start paying facilitators, start paying a bunch of people for part-time salaries, and also get an office up in North Cambridge. So split roughly thirds across those 3 things. And then after about 9 months later, I had built a relationship with OpenPhil and made a bigger application to them for about £2 million. And that was then to really scale things up, where we were like, okay, we're building this big co-working space in Cambridge, which is called Meridian now. I'm going to start hiring loads of people. We're going to start doing all kinds of different things. And the plan was very expansive in a very unfocused way. It was actually not a very good plan. But OpenPhil trusted in, I think, the team that we were building and wanted to see us succeed. And they'd seen all of the strong reviews from the AGI safety fundamentals and seen that we already had a strong track record, even with basically no money of delivering impact. And so they were like, well, if we can provide this person, but this is me guessing, if we can provide this person with more finances, then they'll probably produce more impact. And so I think the track record really helps there. Yeah.
Awesome. And if you would give yourself from a couple years ago some fundraising advice, what do you think you would tell yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't think I would do anything majorly different. Maybe a piece of advice I have for people, which is maybe useful, is a lot of people will spend months in a Google Doc writing a funding proposal. This is a huge mistake. Do not spend ages in a Google Doc writing a funding proposal. Find an important problem, become obsessed with the problem, and then start trying to solve the problem. The funding proposal you could probably just throw together in like a day or two. But what you really want is you want to have some kind of proof that you are actually committed to solving the problem and that you are capable in solving the problem. And so, again, I don't want to overfit too much to BlueDot here, but we already had a track record of delivering impact, and so that put us in a much stronger position to raise money because it was very evident what we had achieved. And I think, when I'm thinking of hiring or when I'm thinking of evaluating applications, the more just very obvious visceral evidence you have of your competence and your dedication, the easier it is to evaluate people. So another random tip I have for people, this is kind of going on a little bit of tangent, it's if you don't have a personal website, make a personal website. You should definitely just have a personal website. Almost everyone, unless you're a spy or something, should have a personal website. And then put your projects on the personal website. Make it really, really easy for people to be able to search you and then very quickly get a feel for what you're about and what you are capable of doing. And what concrete things have you achieved in the past? And don't just say the thing, show the thing. The more you can show rather than tell, the better. And so, yeah, that's my hot take. Make a personal website. It's very easy. You can vibe code it together. You can go on Wix or Squarespace, whatever you want. Write some stuff, put your face on it, put some projects on it. I guarantee you that will help with your future job applications or fundraising. Fairly confident that is true. Some people might disagree. I can debate them. That's fine. But yeah, that's my hot take.
Very interesting. Thanks.
Yeah.
Relatedly, let me think what was the question that came to mind here. Right. Yeah. What is some of the best advice that you've received in the past couple of years while running BlueDot?
So I'm tempted to answer a slightly different question, but it might be more fun.
Frame it.
Yeah. So maybe I'll tell a different story. One of the problems I realized that BlueDot had about 12 months ago was our software infrastructure had become very, very, very messy. We had loads of Airtable bases, loads of fields, loads of automations, loads of different emails. Everything had just become very, very, very clunky. And I was like, okay, I should probably try and do something about this, but I had no idea what to do. So we started trying to label everything. We got everyone to go through all of the infrastructure and like add their name to things and try. But this all just produced more clunk. It just made everything more complex. We tried to implement like standards and rules. This also just made everything more complex. And I happened to be reading Elon Musk's biography at the time by Walter Isaacson. Strong recommend. I think it's a really, really good book. And one of the frameworks in this book that Elon Musk has is this like 5-step algorithm, which is like how he approaches any manufacturing or process or product problem, which is to start by questioning every requirement, then delete every pass or process that you can, then simplify as much as you can, then accelerate whatever the process is, and then only once you've done those 4 things should you automate. And do not start by automating. Otherwise, you're going to automate something that is not the right thing to be automating. There's a really good example in this book where there was some bottleneck in the Tesla manufacturing process where one of the steps of like applying some sound dampener to the floor was just really slow. And so this was like the key constraint in this process. And so Elon goes down to this part of the factory. He's like, why is this so slow? What's going on? They're like, this like sound dampener thing, we've got to plump on the floor and it's like really annoying, but it's really, the adhesive is weird and you've got to stick it and it takes a bunch of time. And he's like, okay, well, why is it there? And then they're like, oh, well, the sound dampener people said, the acoustics people said it has to be there. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to question that requirement. He goes to the acoustics people and he's like, why is this flipping annoying thing on the floor? And they're like, oh, actually, we think it's for fire reasons. It's actually nothing to do with the sound. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go to the fire people and see what's up. And then he goes to the fire people, and then the fire people are like, oh, no, it's total bullshit. No, it's not needed. And he's like, great, delete, it's gone. And so now that part is gone. He could have approached this by thinking, okay, how are we going to optimize? How are we going to automate the process of sticking this thing to the bottom of the car? That would just have added more time. And it was actually just better to remove the whole thing. What is the key lesson here? It's just like question everything and delete as much as you can. It's insane how much leverage we get from doing this to everything. Every single email we send, we try and reduce the copy as much as possible. Every discussion guide we develop, we try and make it as simple as possible. All of our Slack infrastructure, we try and keep it as elegant, as simple as possible. All of our code base, every Wednesday, we're now doing Whack-A-Mole Wednesday, where we just go through and delete things. We go through Airtable, we're just deleting things all the time. And we celebrate every time we delete things. Because when I initially tried to implement this, people got very upset with me. People would send me essays about how upset I had made them by deleting their things, even though it took me like 2 minutes to rebuild the things that were deleted. It took them probably an hour to write the essay. And so people really don't like deleting things. It's a very against our nature. We've like drilled it into BlueDot culture that deleting things is awesome. And like minimalism is really powerful. So yeah, there you go. That's my tip.
So it sounds like both in terms of like broad organizational focus, try to narrow everything down, and then execution, narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks. And I guess in a similar realm, what are some of the harder strategic trade-offs that you've had to make over the past couple of years at BlueDot?
One decision I made, which many people got very upset with me about, was I decided to pause all of our courses for like 6 months. Or not all of the courses, but most of them. Everyone thought I was kind of insane. And it plausibly was a mistake. The courses were working quite well. lots of people tell us very nice things about the courses. In open field surveys, it's like it ranks very well in terms of the kind of community's impact. But I had done a bunch of user interviews with people from our courses to try and understand what were they doing afterwards and how did they see themselves contributing to AI safety, and realized, oh man, everyone is deeply, deeply confused. And then I was like, well, maybe we should try and figure out how to we should try and deconfuse them, but we're also confused. I don't know how do we make AI go well? And then we were thinking, okay, what should our course portfolio look like? I was like, I have no idea how to make this decision in like a principled way. And so there are a bunch of things pointing towards deep strategic confusion on the level of how do we make AI go well, which was blocking our decision making on what courses to develop, and where should we be trying to get our community to go and produce impact afterwards. And we tried to operationalize this as like, what is our North Star? It is get really amazing people into really impactful work. It was something of that nature. It's just like, what is the metric we're trying to optimize? More amazing people in impactful work. Make that number go up. It's like, oh shit, okay, well, what is impactful work? Oh, we got very confused. And so I was like, okay, I think we're just going to continue being confused about this unless we do something pretty major. And we decided to pause most of the courses to deploy a huge amount of organizational focus on the question of how do we make AI go well. I spent over a month in the Bay just interviewing people about how do we make AI go well, and then spent many weeks writing my own blog posts and internal docs on all the different strategic considerations, what threats people are concerned about, what are the key strategic uncertainties, and this allowed us to get much more clarity on this like top line strategic question of how do we make AI go well, and that then enabled me to go through the strategic process of thinking through how do we make AI go well, then how do we build the workforce that is needed to make AI go well, and then how do I build the company that builds the workforce that makes AI go well. And I was trying to make decisions down here on like how do I build a company, or even how do I build specific products that make AI go well. But I was so confused on this top line strategic question that I was just making things up. I was just so unmoored from reality. And so, yeah, the key strategic decision I had to make there was to basically stop running BlueDot for over a month. It was like probably about 2 months in the end that I was just not running BlueDot anymore, because I was just attacking this question of how do we make AI go well. And I think it was, I mean, it's turned out well, I think, so far. We have like way better strategic clarity now. And we now have a much clearer plan. We're much more focused, but it was an extremely painful 6 months. It was not a good time for everyone involved. Many people were very upset with me, and understandably so. But I was like, I just can't make rational decisions about what to do with this company until I have clarity on this question. And so I just like put all of my effort into attacking that problem. Yeah.
How did that change what you plan to do with BlueDot after those?
Yeah.
What is it, 2 or 6 months?
Yeah, a few months. So we now have a blog post that came out a few weeks ago that my co-founder wrote, Will, and it describes our vision for our course portfolio. And you can see in this blog post all the key courses that we are hoping to design. It provided us with a lot more clarity on, or like enabled us to develop this defense in depth framework on how do we think, what do we think are all the different types of interventions that are needed to make AI go well, and from preventing the training of dangerous AI systems, detecting and constraining dangerous AI capabilities, and then withstanding dangerous AI actions. So the first is things like compute export controls or international treaties to try and stop the development of more powerful AI models. The second is things like interpretability evals, alignments, adversarial robustness. That is like, okay, we have a dangerous model. We've failed to prevent a dangerous model from being trained. So it exists in a data center somewhere. How do we ensure that it does not, in practice, do dangerous things? And then if we assume that we fail to control the dangerous models, how do we make society resilient to those attacks from powerful humans using the AIs to try and do coups of governments or malevolent actors trying to build bioweapons, etc. And so, it enabled us to build this framework, which has been extremely helpful for our decision making. And then it's given us a bunch of different stories for what end states might look like in 10, 20 years' time with AI. I can get into that if that would be helpful as well, but it might be too in the weeds.
Thanks for sharing. And what are some changes, maybe more broadly, you would like to see in the AI safety ecosystem, maybe in terms of talent that you think is missing, or habits people tend to have in this ecosystem that you would like to see changed? Why might you want to see those changes?
A fun conversation I was having recently was on how in this community you get a lot more brownie points for discovering a new problem or a new risk, and very few brownie points for trying to solve the problem. And people's default mode is to be extremely critical and extremely to pull people down, be like, oh no, I don't believe your theory of change. Or I think you're going to make everything worse. Oh no, I'm scared. Stop. About a month ago, someone messaged me saying, "Hey, Dewi, FYI, loads of people think you're way too ambitious. It's they're telling me, they're not happy with you. They think your plan is too ambitious. You need to tone it down." This person then told me, actually, I think they're wrong. I think you're in the right, but just to let you know, this is a vibe in the community. And I was like, geez, what the hell? It's just like, it's an adversarial place if you're trying to take risks and you're trying to build something. Building something is really, really, really hard. You're putting your neck out. You're being vulnerable. If you went to SF and you behaved like this, you would just not get invited to parties for very long. That is not the vibe in YC. Everyone is pushing themselves to be bigger and bolder all the time. And there are risks involved with what we're doing, but there's also massive risks in not doing anything. And I'm currently far more concerned about the risks of not doing anything than the risks of doing something. And maybe that is different in the past, but yes.
Sorry, to clarify, are you referring to EA, AI safety, London, or all?
All three of those things, yes. So am I referring to EA, AI safety, or London? It is like, the EA community is like this. It's been founded by analytic philosophers, not by entrepreneurs. AI safety is also very, this way inclined, though I think a little bit more entrepreneurial than EA. And then the UK itself is also very, anti-entrepreneurship. People want the trend, the cultural drivers are towards conformity, not towards being bold and doing something really cool. Which is obviously why most British entrepreneurs move to San Francisco, or like a large fraction of them. I'm not sure if it's most, but and I think that's sad, but I hope is something that we can change as well.
Yeah, I can relate to what you're saying. I think there is you need to get through a lot of, talking about downside risks before, which it's also good, but the balance might be a bit off, I would agree.
Yeah.
In terms of organizations, what do you think are some of the biggest gaps in the AI safety ecosystem right now that maybe people who are looking to make a strong positive impact might consider taking on as problem areas?
So the way I would encourage people now to think about this is to think about these kind of 3 layers of the defense in depth model that I proposed earlier. First of all, actually, the key thing I recommend you do is register interest for our AGI strategy course, which will be announced very soon, where we will be going into these questions, and which we are designing primarily for emerging leaders and entrepreneurs to help them make decisions about what to prioritize. So the whole point of this course is what would I have wanted 6 months ago, and to help people make sensible decisions on these things. So anything I tell you now is not going to be adequate. These are really, really complex things that you have to spend weeks, if not months, delving into detail on. The rough way that we are thinking about this at the moment, and this might change, is again, the problem of trying to prevent the training of dangerous AI systems. And how do we do that? There's lots of things that we could do. There's most of the things we're not doing. There's the question of if we have trained a dangerous AI system, but we still have it under our control in terms of in a data center, how do we ensure that it does not in practice do harmful things? And there's a whole cluster of things there. And then just how do we make society more resilient to very powerful AI systems doing dangerous, harmful actions? And there's a very, very, very large range of things there. So yeah, I think there is no one gap. This problem is not a simple, very well-defined problem of which there is like one key thing that needs to happen to make it go well. Unless you think what needs to happen is something like the US government controls all global computes and stops anyone from training any dangerous AI systems, then maybe it's a single thing. But I think that is extremely unlikely and might be very bad. Though I might also change my mind on this. So yeah, it's extremely complex, basically, is what I'm saying. And yeah, so I'm kind of not going to directly answer the question, but that's what I'll share.
That's great. It was also a great plug. Okay, then we'll move on to some direct audience questions soon. Maybe I'll ask one more question prepared already, unless people are immediately ready to ask questions. And the focus here will be more on the AI safety entrepreneurship side of things. So please keep that in mind with the questions. And yeah, there will also be a bunch of online questions coming in. Feel free to also upvote the questions in the Q&A section on the Zoom, which ones you're most interested in. And then, yeah, please feel free to start with the question here and make sure to repeat it.
Great.
Hey, thank you very much for sharing your experience and some book plugs. I this book have the list.
Nice.
I took a look at the plan that was shared. It does seem like BlueDot and maybe the organization that you want to found or want us to found are operating on like a fairly close to steady state model where it's like in the near future, these models will be controlled by large AI labs that will be using very large amounts of compute to do these large training runs, and then we will have this sort of post-training phase where we're trying to look for stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
The question then is, what does BlueDot think about like other distributional risks, basically, like other scenarios, like maybe an AI 2027 kind of thing, where like things go much faster than we expect?
Yeah.
How does BlueDot or any future AI organization fit, and how would you want them to fit?
Yeah. Nice. So one reason why I think I made worse decisions in the past 6 months was because I was trying to make decisions in a state of panic, where I was like, oh my God, AGI is coming in 2 years, and then it's going to be ASI 6 months later. What the hell do we do? I need to do something really big. That was not productive for my decision making. It led to just like lots of rapid, confused pivots. It was just like very, very turbulent. And that was at the same time as trying to do this strategy thinking. And so one of my planning assumptions that I was like, okay, I'm just going to put a stake in the ground for myself here, is I do not expect something like AGI, i.e. an AI system that could automate all remote cognitive labor until at least 2030. I'm just going to like put a stake in the ground for myself in order to allow me to just be sane and try to actually have plans and not just be in a state of panic. So that's like one thing I have done for myself. I don't think everyone should do this. I think it is extremely important for some people to have, to be operating on different timelines. Yeah, exactly. Where if, for example, you think that we will have AI systems in 2 years' time that could destroy civilization, then doing some trying to like make the world pandemic proof. Like, we're not going to make the world pandemic proof in 2 years' time. Well, that's debatable. But there are some ways that we could actually achieve this in 2 years. But there's going to be many ways in which a super intelligent AI system could destroy civilization. And so then you might be betting really hard on actually we do just need to control the compute supply chain. We need to try and lock down AI development, etc. And so if that is your planning assumption, then what layer of the defense in-depth model you prioritize is different. But I think it's still going to be one of these. It's going to be like adjacent to one of these things. There might be other things where you focus more on like government crisis response, or trying to like build up really strong advocacy capacity, such that in some decisive moments or some global emergency, you can do a bit. You can like mobilize lots of people to do something important. Again, I'm hand waving here, but it's not just like do these three very narrow things necessarily. But yeah, I appreciate I'm not giving you like a super precise answer here. Yeah.
Summarize, like you've driven a stake into the ground, and that's like, this is my table stakes. This is what I'm going to start with.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen, and then the rest is sort of like building on that stake, right?
A lot of it is, yes,
Yeah.
yes, and a lot of the thinking, a lot of like prior thinking went into where to place that stake, and experience of having the stake somewhere else and realizing I am extremely ineffective in this mode. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, for AI safety, within the nonprofit model or the for-profit model, for AI safety, do you think nonprofit is the main way to make impact, or do you think there's scope for like for-profit organizations to have impact as well?
So the question is, in AI safety, should you go for a non-profit or a for-profit? So I think this is entirely downstream of what problem you're trying to solve and what you think the best solution to that problem is. If the problem that you are trying to solve, if there is a market for solving your problem, and you could make a lot of revenue from this, and that would enable you to solve the problem more effectively by charging people for the product and raising money from VCs, and then having the incentive structure that you would have if you raise from VCs, and you think that's the best way to solve the problem, then a for-profit model makes a lot of sense. For BlueDot, a for-profit model doesn't make as much sense, because if we charged the people who do our courses, we would quite dramatically decrease the number of people doing our courses. It would add a huge amount of friction. And it's, there are some successful ed tech companies, but most of them are like MOOCs, and they sell to enterprise. And we don't want to be selling to enterprise. I'm not trying to train AI officers in some random SaaS company. And like charging governments, for example, it takes like 10 months just to get onto their procurement system. And so if we were constraining ourselves in that way, it would not work. So I think it's entirely context dependent on what is the problem you're trying to solve, how do you think it's best to solve that problem, and what financial model makes sense given that information. And for sure, there's loads of for-profit opportunities in AI safety. There's also many things that do not have great opportunities in the for-profit world, but for which grant makers are willing to invest in. Yeah, so that's my answer to that.
Shall we take one question from online so they also feel included, and then we can switch around? So one question from there that I would like to pick out for you is one from Sue, maybe you know him. And the question is, how are you so cracked productivity-wise?
Oh, I think I am not. I have had to build an insane amount of infrastructure around myself to organize myself. I've also had coaching for 2 hours every week for I think maybe 3 years. I can't remember, it's either 2 or 3 years. I'm thinking about how to improve my productivity of my systems and myself, every day. And I've had to do this because otherwise I would be extremely ineffective, and I would just be, distracted all the time. Yeah, so I think the answer is I'm not cracked from a productivity perspective. There are many people who are dramatically more cracked than I am. There are days where I can only do 3 hours of work, and I just have to accept that. There are some days where I can be super focused for 10 hours. But that is not the norm. Maybe the kind of tip that I would have here is something like, and this is I think a Sam Altman quote as well, which is something like, moving in the right direction is often more important than moving really fast. So you can be super productive at just doing random stuff, and jumping around all the time in a kind of chaotic way. But if you really have clarity on what problem you're trying to solve, and you're moving constantly in that direction, day after day after day after day, that is far, far more important than being really, really productive, but just moving around, just having motion. Yeah, regardless of what your productivity is, I think just having clarity on what goal you're trying to execute on, and just being consistent every day for weeks and months and years to achieve that, I think is much, much more important. Maybe I want to do a graph. I'm gonna bring the camera with me. Okay.
Live vlog.
Yeah. Okay, everyone can see my face now. I've still got the thing. Okay, I'm gonna do it over here. Here we go. Can they see me? Does this work? Can they see the whiteboard? Great.
All good.
So this was there's a book, I think it's called Essentialism. And I've not read the book, I've just read the summary of it. But often you don't need to read the book, you just need to read the summary. And it has these two graphs, which I really like. And this is kind of like, this is like you, this blob. And if you're just trying to do a bunch of random stuff, you're just kind of moving all over the place. So after 1 unit of time, you've kind of explored this space. And then you know, okay, I need to move here now, so I'm going to be like here. And you've just been kind of dabbling, just jumping around. There is another option, which is you're just like, I'm going to commit to this one thing, and I'm going to commit really hard for some units of time. And you might discover that was actually the wrong direction. So now you're over here, and you go this way. And you're now at time step 2, you're over here, which is like a pretty long way towards your goal. Here, if you just keep on doing this, you're just going to be moving around like this. And this is, if you're just not really committing to anything, and you're just trying to do loads of different stuff, this is what you look like. You're just kind of ambling through life, slowly. Whereas you want to just be going super, super hard on one thing. And this requires a painful decision about all the stuff that you're not doing. I have this phrase that I really like, which is your anti-goals should be painful. So what is an anti-goal? An anti-goal is a thing that you want to do that you are deciding not to do. So you're like, I really want to do this thing, but I'm not going to do it. And it should hurt. If it does not hurt, you are not focused enough. And so, here this person has been they've not been brave enough to say no to all this other stuff, so they're just floating. Whereas this person's been like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to go in one direction. That is far more effective. Anyway, that's my hot take. I'll jump back to the front. I'll continue my vlogging spree. I'm going to climb over chairs, try not to fall over.
Wow. Oh, yeah. They're getting a live feed. That's great. So we're kind of close to the official ending time. So what I would propose I do is I kind of say the few things that people want to hear before they possibly need to log off. And then if you have some 5 or 10 minutes extra, we could just
I've got 5 cents. Yeah.
Right. So the things that before people might log off at 7:30. One of them is we're organizing more events like this one in the upcoming months. So if you're interested in that, I would encourage you to subscribe to the Luma event calendar and our newsletter, and you'll stay up to date, get to hear more interesting takes from people like Dewi. The links are sent right now in the chat online, and also if you signed up through Luma, you'll have an email with the right links. And I just wanted to plug again, so Catalyze, we're an incubator, and we'll be running another incubation program within a safety this winter. So if you might be interested in that, please fill out our expression of interest form. Let's continue with the questions now, and then we'll do the actual wrap up later. Are there more questions from inside here from the audience?
Thank you, Dewi. So BlueDot is now anticipating to scale up quite significantly. What major bottlenecks do you anticipate in scaling up, and how do you deal with them now?
So what major bottlenecks does BlueDot have to scaling? 6 months ago, the major bottleneck was strategic clarity on how to make AI go well. So we attacked that. And then about 2 months ago, it was not having a clear organizational strategy. So we attacked that, and we now have a clearer organizational strategy. Now and then it was also fundraising, and we attacked that, and we now have enough funds. Now it is people. We are only 4 full-time people in London, and we have one person full-time elsewhere, and then a few contractors. But we're like an extremely small team, and we're very lucky to have a really strong core team, and also really strong contractors who we work with. But we're still very, very small. So hiring is the next bottleneck. So 2 of my team at the moment are full-time on hiring. We are hiring for an AI governance specialist right now. We'll probably hire a few people for that. We'll be opening a tech lead role in the next few weeks, which is like a kind of founding engineer type role. So keep an eye out for that. That will be announced very soon. Yeah, we've got now like a pretty significant hiring roadmap for how we build out the team. Yeah, so that is the next bottleneck. And at some point it will be like, how the hell do you run a big company? I've never run a big company before, so I'll have to figure that out. But I'm also lucky to have lots of advisors and people who can help me as well. Yeah.
On a related note, one question from online was how's your approach in gaining the people management and organization building skills that you might not have known about already?
Great question. So there's a fun. I'll try and keep it short. I have a very long story here, but I'm going to try and not give it a long story. In 2018, I realized I was really, really rubbish at leadership. I realized this while I was on a like military training camp thing. So I was in this like military unit at university, and the military loves leadership. And we were in this like 9-day thing where we were in the field doing various missions, and I discovered I was wildly incompetent at leadership. And then I saw this other dude who was extremely kick-ass at leadership, and he was just really, really effective at achieving the missions. It was like rescue some hostages over there or something, and I was wildly ineffective. And I was like, oh bloody hell, that was a big shock. And so afterwards I was like, okay, well, I think this leadership thing is very important. How do I learn this? So I went online, learn leadership, and I found this like leadership course, or this like MBA course on Coursera, and some University of Illinois or something like this. And there was a specific module called like a leadership and strategic management, something like this. And so I spent a few weeks over the summer in 2019 learning all the kind of principles and theory. And then I was like, okay, I need to apply these. So I founded the EA Durham student group. I was at university in Durham, and also became the president of my university's a cappella group. And then I applied all of these principles in practice to actually like really rehearse and see how do I implement this stuff. So it's not just theoretical things. It's like let's get it to touch reality. And yeah, I just kind of continued doing this where I like identify I have a problem. In this example, it was I'm crap at leadership. Let's try and learn how to be good at leadership, and let's practice it. And just continued doing that. So anytime I discover a new problem, like a year ago, it was our software infrastructure is crap. So I started trying to figure out how do I solve this problem, found this Elon Musk thing. So it's like very happenstance. I was just trying to expose myself to lots of things, heard this algorithm. I was like, that will solve my problem. And it turns out that did solve the problem. Yeah, this kind of basic story of just like, you have a problem, take the problem seriously, learn things, and then become better. That was kind of the story. Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, thanks for answering that question as well. I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up for today. Let me put myself back into frame as well. Yeah, we'll have to wrap up, but thank you so much for taking the time, Dewi, and thank you all for coming and taking the time out of your day to get inspired. Yeah, maybe see you guys next time.
Thank you, everyone.